we are day 6 hormone question. We're talking about hormone migraines. We're talking about menopause after ablation, anxiety and hormones, and more. All your one thing hormone questions answered right here on social media. If you haven't submitted your question yet, please do so. The link is on whatever channel you are watching me on. Give me a shout out and let me know that you're here. I see Marie here. Hey, welcome. Happy Tuesday, day after the holiday weekend. So let's get right to it. Your questions answered. So we had so many questions and I had to write some of them out because I couldn't keep track of all of them on my phone. So let's get started. With the hormones, the first question we had was about migraines. She said progesterone's causing migraines and vomiting, which is very unusual. So I'm just going to talk about migraines and hormones in general. It's actually usually, you can get them with menstrual migraines where they occur. Some women will get them on their periods or right before their periods during the PMS period. And that's due when you're a cycling female to the deficiency. When that estrogen drops, it can cause a neurologic change and some vascular spasm where you can actually get migraine headaches. And this can be exacerbated in the perimenopause and menopausal time periods. So sometimes we will give estrogen to help with those. And sometimes we will give progesterone, but it depends what your hormone levels are. So yesterday, if you were here, we talked in detail about it doesn't matter what you call it menopause, you call it perimenopause. It's what your hormone levels are. That's what matters. So your brain is intimately involved with these hormones and reacts and responds to the levels. And as they change, if you're a cycling woman, or they're not changing and you're a menopausal woman. So you've got to know what your hormone levels are and then adjust them. But that vascular spasm in the brain that can cause migraines, that's because of hormone imbalances. So you want to find out what your levels are and address them. It sounds like if the progesterone's not agreeing with you, that's not your problem. But also if you have gut dysfunction or liver dysfunction and a certain amount of toxicity, then your body may not react normally or optimally to progesterone. So that may be the problem too. So you need to look at if you have a gut or liver problem, because that's where these hormones are metabolized. They go through the gut and they go through the liver. So great. I see Deanna, Susie. How are you guys? Good to see you. All right. Give me a shout out here on Facebook. Let me know who's here. All right. The other question we had was someone had an ablation and she said, how do I determine if I'm in menopause after an ablation at 58 or 59? And I still struggle with stress eating and weight gain. Okay. So a few things in this question. So at 58 or 59, you are most certainly in menopause. Because the average age of menopause in the United States is 51, plus or minus 5 years, and it's a very rare woman at 56 who you will see. I've never seen someone 56 still having periods. 55, I think I've seen one person. So at 58 and 59, you are in menopause, period. If you wanted to have a blood test, you can ask your doctor to do an FSH or follicle stimulating hormone test, and they can tell you that. But at 58 or 59, you just are in menopause. So I know it's hard to tell because when you have an ablation, it stops you from having periods. But just, how we're programmed biologically to have ovarian failure by the time before we're 58 or 59. And then you said you're still struggling with stress eating and weight gain. So when you say still, that tells me you struggled with stress eating and weight gain before menopause. So it would be great if we could blame everything on menopause and, I'm stress eating because of menopause. But let's be real, ladies. What's the truth? If we had a problem with stress eating before menopause, we're going to have it after. So stress eating is not about menopause. It's about our emotional habits and how we try to medicate issues with food, non-nutritive problems. We make a nutritional problem by eating food. So when I talk to someone who stress eats, and that's been a part of my history too, certainly in the past, when I would be stressed, I would want to eat food, more food than I typically should, and particularly sugar. That's because when you're stressed, your cortisol goes out of balance and your body wants to come back into balance. And it wants to do that by sugar, because sugar and insulin is regulated by insulin hormone on the top and cortisol on the bottom. So they're kind of like the bookends on your sugar. So when you are stressed and your cortisol starts getting wonky, that's the stress hormone, it starts making you want sugar to balance it out. So you've got to address your stress issues and look at healthy ways to manage your stress. Back when I weighed 243 pounds and I had chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and all the health problems that I had, including anxiety, which we got a question about that we're going to dive into. We talked yesterday about how the bookends for my day were what they are for a lot of women at midlife. Coffee in the morning to get you going and boost you up, and alcohol in the evening to calm you down, and some cookies too. So it was this constant up and down craziness. The stress eating, I would have stressful days, because some days I wouldn't get home at all. I'd be up all night at the hospital delivering babies and doing surgery, and eating a lot of sugar and stress eating was a big part of my problem. And, at some point when I started doing a root cause resolution approach, I had to get honest with myself that I was trying to feed non-emotional problems with food, and you can't solve an emotional problem with food. You just can't. And that it really was only hurting me. And so I was like, looked at that and it's like, I don't want to do that anymore. So, eating food is a way of not feeling your emotions, right? When they're too intolerable. But I found that it's way better to feel the emotions and really look at what's going on that's causing these emotions and deal with it, unpack it, rather than stuffing them, because they don't go away. They just stay there waiting for you to pay attention to them. Pay attention to me, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. And they're always going to be there until you turn and look at that thing you don't want to look at. Maybe it's the fact that you really dislike your job and you're going every day, but you don't know what else to do because you've been in that career for 20, 30 years. And you're like, if I have to go in this office one more day, I'm going to take a fork and stick it in my eye. You got to deal with that. You got to look at it. Or maybe it's a relationship difficulty, or where you're living in your home. I used to have a receptionist who worked for me when I had a brick and mortar office for many, many years. And she said that to me one day. She said, if I have to go into that house, she was renting a place with her husband at the time and her son, and it really just wasn't a nurturing environment to live in. And she said, if I have to go into that home one more day, I'm going to die. I can't do it anymore. It was just all kinds of problems and landlord difficulties and things like this. Maybe you can relate. And she knew that was causing her emotional stress. And it wasn't until she finally admitted, oh my God, this is really stressing me out and it's wrecking my health, that she couldn't take action on her own behalf. So the emotions of frustration, emotions of hopelessness, emotions about what do I do, just kept coming up. Can you relate? What is it in your life? We all go through seasons in life where we have these things that come up for us and we're just like, I can't do it anymore. But a lot of times first we go through the denial phase where we don't want to admit that something's happened, because if we admit it, what does that mean? It means you might have to do something about it. And most of us are terrified of changing anything. Like, who here likes change? I was meeting with a client this morning and she said something about, yeah, I hate change, right? Nobody likes it. But what's the only thing you can count on in life? Change, right? It's just the nature. Your body's always changing. The weather's always changing. everything is in a constant state of change and becoming and evolution. And if you're doing it consciously and you're paying attention, then you're helping to guide that change to go in the direction that's more nurturing for you, more supportive for you, that makes you happier and more fulfilled. But if you're fighting it because you're like, I don't even want to know what I don't want to know because I don't want to have to do what I don't want to do. You know what I'm talking about. You've been there, ladies. You're there. Some of you are there right now. Then you're just like, you're paralyzed. You're like, I can't do anything because you're not willing to admit to yourself. And you know, that leads me to what I was talking about earlier with a client that I'm going to talk a little bit about, because I know somebody out there needs to hear this, so I'm going to share it. So part of what I teach about is not only hormone balance, and hormones come from your mainframe computer, your brain, and they are communicators. They tell all your cells what to do. But part of what I help women to understand is that it's not just this flesh and bones that you are. You are this energetic being that actually is much larger than your flesh and bone body, that has to do with your intangibles, your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, your spirit, your soul. It's right. It's all the things you can't detect with your senses: see, hear, taste, touch, smell, feel, right? And that you can't have a physical problem. You can't have migraines. You can't have gut dysfunction. You can't have hot flash. You can't have any physical problem without a disruption in this energy body. It's just impossible, because it is the framework of your physical body. And so when you have disease or dis-ease in the body, it's your physical body giving you a notice that there's something wrong in your energy body. And it's impossible to have a physical problem without an energetic disruption. So part of it is, yes, check your hormone levels, balance your hormones, you know, take supplements, to do the vitamins, eat right, all those things for the physical. But you've also got to address the problems in the energetic. And it's up to you to discern what the problems are. If you know what I'm talking about, let me know. Give me a thumbs up or a holler and let me know that you're here. You've got to discern that. And so for me, back when I was very unhealthy, I was like, oh, my health is my only problem. My health is my only problem. If I could just lose the weight, if I could just get healthy, then everything would be great. Well, then that finally happened. And what I had realized at that time was it was more than that. There were things going on in my life that were causing these energetic disruptions that I didn't want to take a look at, because I didn't want to do what I knew I was going to have to do. So even though there were aspects of my job that I absolutely loved as an OBGYN, there were others of what it required me to do, like staying up at the hospital for 36 hours at a time, and just really interfering with my ability to be a wife and a mom and a human, that I really didn't like. And so I didn't want to have to change anything there. I didn't think I could. So I didn't want to admit that to myself. And then in certain relationships also, there were things that weren't being said that needed to be said, that needed to be addressed. I don't want to look at that either. And so part of this, that I was having this conversation earlier, she's like, everything's great. It's just that my health sucks. That's the only problem. No. So if that's you and you're saying that to yourself, what you need to realize is there's some energetic disruption going on. Maybe it's just some resentments that you're carrying around, or you haven't grieved certain losses that you've had, right? Those create energetic disruptions. So until you feel that, feel the things, feel the emotions. Emotions are energy in motion, emotion. They're meant to move through you. And my colleague, Dr. Joan Rosenberg, always says that 90 seconds is all it takes an emotion to wash through you and you to feel it when you don't hold on to it. But if you hold on to it, it gets caught physically in your tissues. And then it causes further energy disruption. And this gets back to the ACE study, adverse childhood events, and how they found that people who have a lot of adverse childhood events grow up to be adults who have a lot of medical problems and need more prescription medications, have more obesity, and all kinds of health problems. Well, how do life events that are semi-traumatic or disruptive contribute to physical health? This is how. Because emotions that aren't processed are stored in the body and will outpicture as health problems. So you've got to address the energy of what's going on in your intangibles. So hopefully that makes sense. Long answer to a short question. So that we started with the question was struggle with stress, eating, and weight gain. And so again, we've talked several days ago about, weight is just a symptom of hormone imbalance, and also this energetic disruption that we're talking about. All right, the last question I wanted to answer is about how to manage anxiety caused by hormone imbalance. And we got so many questions since yesterday that we'll have to leave some for tomorrow. Some of the ones we're going to talk about tomorrow are, somebody said, I'm on bioidentical hormones, but how does it impact my weight gain and other menopause symptoms? Because I'm still overweight and having menopause symptoms. So we'll tackle that tomorrow. And then somebody else said, I'm taking bioidenticals, but I'm losing hair and she's also gaining weight. How to figure out my correct dose. So we're going to go over those tomorrow. But this person asked about how to manage anxiety caused by hormonal imbalance. And I love that she's getting that her anxiety. How many people here? Oh, Deanna says, I'm preaching to the choir. I see a bunch of you out there. Hey, give me a shout out. Let me know who's here on Facebook. Let me know who's here on Instagram, YouTube. And so, we have this kind of belief in our culture that anxiety is just like this thing that you have. I have anxiety. Maybe we think it's genetic, that we got it from our parents. How many of you think that? Give me a hand up. Or it's just a thing that comes upon us, like it's a disease. But the truth is that anxiety has its roots in physicality. So it has its roots in our gut health and our hormone balance, which is intimately tied to our gut health. And it has roots in our childhood wiring of our nervous system, particularly our stress response system. So anytime someone tells me that they've got anxiety, and this was part of my story too, I had horrible anxiety and depression. And at one point I was on 5 medications to treat anxiety and depression. It was so bad. I would feel literally like I was shaking in my skin. I was so anxious. Has anyone ever, am I the only one? I know I'm not, because I talk to people like this all the time, but give me a shout out if that's you. I was so anxious that I would literally feel like I was vibrating inside. Although I would look at my hands and they weren't shaking, they felt like they were quaking inside. That's how anxious I was. And so I would take all these medications and it would dial it down for me. Well, that's when I weighed 240 pounds. And then when I lost the weight and I balanced my hormones, wow, I didn't have anxiety as much. And then I healed my gut and didn't have anxiety. Your gut is your second brain. There are more neurotransmitters in your gut than anywhere else in your body, including your brain. So what does that tell you? This thing we talk about, gut feeling, is a real thing. And your gut feeds directly into your brain and affects your neurotransmitter levels. So if you have inflammation in your gut, you're going to have inflammation in your brain, unbalanced neurotransmitters, which can show up as irritability, depression, anxiety, all kinds of things. So once I started healing all that, all those root causes, it all went away. And now I don't take any psychotropic medications, not a one, for years. Because the anxiety is gone, because I balanced my hormones and I healed my gut. So this question about how to manage anxiety caused by hormone imbalances, you've got to deal with the root cause of it. And the root cause is from hormone imbalance and gut dysfunction on the physical level, and usually a programming of the stress response system into an overdrive when we're kids, and maybe that's being exacerbated by something in our life, like our living situation that we talked about earlier, or our work situation, or relationships, or whatever. So you've got to deal with the root causes of it. Probably if you go to your regular doctor and you say, oh, I have anxiety, what are they going to do? They're going to give you a medication, right? They're going to give you Lexapro or Zoloft or Prozac or, Valium or Xanax or whatever, doctors give. They're going to write you prescriptions for it. Are they going to tell you, oh, well, we need to check your gut function and look at what's going on with your second brain? No, because they don't know that because they weren't taught that in medical school. Are they going to say, oh, we should look at your hormone levels because, wow, anxiety can be associated with thyroid dysfunction. So we need to do the right tests and read them the right way and find that maybe your thyroid is off and that's why you have anxiety? No, because that's not what they're taught. Are they going to say, oh, we should look and see if you have adrenal fatigue and look at your salivary cortisol? Because that is a extremely common sign of adrenal fatigue. No, because they're not taught that. So they don't know what they weren't taught. It's not their fault. We're not taught that in medical school. What we are taught is, what is the symptom? What's the diagnosis? What drug do I need to give? And it just amazes me that the ICD, International Classification of Diseases, I think we're on 11 now, that's the compendium of all the diseases that we know of that have been named and cataloged and given a number. That's what they do. That's what we're taught to do is assign you one of those. And it amazes me how many of those are actually symptoms. They're not causes, they're symptoms, like irritable bowel. Like, that's the most insane diagnosis to me ever, because it's not a diagnosis, it's just a description of a symptom. So, in functional medicine, we go to the underlying cause, what's causing it, and that's the diagnosis, right? So with anxiety, that's in that ICD cataloging. They're just going to look up anxiety. Is it like with or without depression, with or without agoraphobia? Like, they're going to find the most specific one. And then what's the treatment is, here's an anxiolytic medication. And then when your anxiety goes away, because maybe that medication cuts it, Valium and Xanax are just alcohol in pill form. So you're basically drinking a drink all day long, even though you're not taking a drink. And then when you say, well, I don't feel anxious, then they're like, yes, success. But inside, your body's like, no, my hormones are still out of balance. My progesterone is still low, which is another thing that can cause anxiety. Estrogen low can cause anxiety. Just thyroid, cortisol, insulin problems, all the hormones, any one of them out of balance can cause anxiety. And usually people don't just have one hormone out of balance, it's multiple. So they all contribute to anxiety. So, and gut dysfunction is what anxiety is about. So I'm always a proponent of getting to the root cause, going in the soil and digging around the roots and fixing them so that you can nourish your tree, so your leaves and branches heal and get healthy and you lose weight and feel amazing because your health is optimized, right? It's like that Ferrari that's tweaked to be really clean and really fast, that your body does that, and then everything is promoting health, immune system function, weight loss, all the things that you want. Like I always say, everything that you ever wanted is on the other side of hormone balance. So thank you so much for these questions. We're going to dive into these bioidentical hormone questions tomorrow. We will make it all about BHRT, including the losing hair, gaining weight, and all the other things that people have been asking. We'll probably get lots more questions. If you haven't submitted your question, please do so. The link is in the description or in the banner on whatever social media channel that you are watching on. And I look forward to talking with you tomorrow. Thanks for your questions and participation. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Bye.